Hi, my name is Autif Kamal, and this is Be Logical. In this podcast, I'm going to focus on one component of a categorical proposition. I'm going to focus on quantity. If you've heard my last couple of videos, or no, my last video, I've talked about categorical propositions before. I've talked about quantity before, but I'm going to talk about a specific importance that quantity has. There are certain statements which have generic pronouns. Those generic pronouns, such as they, can be replaced with a categorical term, and hence that categorical term can be accompanied by a quantifier. But because they're replaced with they mask that they can be replaced with that, and for that reason that statement is misleading. And when you do include that categorical term in the subject and the quantifier, it makes it more obvious about whether that statement can be challenged or not. Okay. Now, just to review, in statements like all computers are electronics, no computers are electronics, some computers are electronics, or some computers are not electronics, the quantifiers would be all, no, or some. Okay. All and no are universal quantifiers. The first quantifier, it affirms a predicate entirely of the subject. For the second, it entirely excludes the subject from the predicate. And the third, it basically says that at least one, the predicate must apply to at least one computer or one of the subject. And for the last one, it says that at least one computer is excluded from the predicate, electronics. Okay. Now, for this concept and its absence in certain statements, I'm going to apply it to an article. It's called Secrets of Self-Made Millionaires. It's by Daniel Bortz. He's a writer or a reporter for the U.S. News and World Report, and I think he submits some excerpts by Steven Siebold. Steven Siebold is an author of How Rich People Think, and basically Steve Siebold, he spent the last 30 years interviewing who he claims to be the world's wealthiest people, and I'm going to show you how when he doesn't use quantity, he makes a misleading claim about how rich people think. Okay, so one question that I think Daniel Bortz asks Steven Siebold is there any way that contempt some people have for the rich can change? Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Actually, I think that's a good example of how to use quantity when he asks whether contempt some people have for the rich can change, because now basically he's implying the idea that there's at least one person who has contempt for the rich. And I don't think that's that crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's at least one person somewhere in the world that has contempt for the rich. But it's Steven Siebold's answer to the next question that I find kind of deceptive, and which I think is worthy of being challenged. So the question that is asked is, do rich people feel that resentment to the point where they only want to associate with other rich people? Steven Siebold says, absolutely, I call it cocooning, but they don't like to talk about money when they get together. I want you to focus on that last sentence, but they don't like to talk about money when they get together. Who is they? They refers to rich people. Okay, so let's take out the first they and put in rich people. But rich people don't like to talk about money when they get together. Okay, now let's change this proposition again. Okay, now let's change it to no rich person likes to talk about money when they get together. So now you see how you could swap out they, put in a categorical term, and also put in a quantifier. Instead of saying rich people don't like to talk about money when they get together, you say no rich person likes to talk about money when they get together. Okay, so I actually am not convinced of that. I don't think it's so crazy that there's at least one rich person who does like to talk about money, does like to talk about how many cars they have, does like to talk about like how expensive their clothes is. So I'm not convinced when Steven Siebold says that rich people don't like to talk about money when they get together. And that's how making the categorical term in the subject explicit and the quantifier explicit makes it easier for you to think about whether such a statement can be challenged. Okay? Thank you.